Hey y'all. So I'm still pretty bummed about the Jennifer Crumbley verdict. I thought I might be over it by now because it's like a done deal, but I'm still pretty sad. And so I was listening to some of my older audios on it, and I decided that I'm gonna just put them all together in one big mega listen. And for anybody that lands on this channel and wants to hear my thoughts on from the beginning when I first saw Shannon Smith, and I was like, this one's a little weird. But I really did like her. I felt that she was very good representation. It's all in the mega listen. And I also gave some thoughts on, the judge, because at first, but she grew on me too. But anyway, it's all in there. I just thought I would clean up my channel because I have so many Crumbley videos on there and they just confuse me and they get in my way. And, I'm really a big Adelson buff. That's really where my brain is. And I just kind of was sidetracked with Crumbley, but she's still, in my heart. Every time I think about her, I get bummed. And I think about the injustice of everything that happened. And I think, when I was watching that trial and I would hear the clanking of the chains coming at her, I just felt insane. I was like, why are we taking this woman and putting chains around her like an animal when she is so, I don't know, the opposite of dangerous, but the opposite is dangerous. I mean, it was crazy to watch her be treated like that. It's so inhumane. And I have watched so many trials with really bad guys and really dangerous criminals, and they never are put in chains like that. And I just couldn't help but think, how is she even managing to get out of bed or get out of cot? I don't understand it. And my heart really does bleed for her. And it makes me sad that a lot of people are just like not even really concerned about it. And it blows my mind too, because I can't believe that people don't realize the effect that this will have on them. But, they're so judgmental of Jennifer. And they look at her and they're like, well, she was a slut. She was, didn't care about her son. She was so selfish. And I'm like, but was she? I mean, do you know that for a fact? I thought they are so out of line to judge her like that. And the thing that makes me, I'm not going to say laugh, but almost be like, oh, I can't wait till the next parent that thought that they were nothing like Jennifer and that they do everything right. But all of a sudden, one day they miss a cue, or they turn the other way, or they give their child the benefit of the doubt, and bam, something like this happens. And then everybody will be like focused on the one thing that they didn't do. And that's what kind of bums me out about this. Is like the more they knew, the worse that they thought Jennifer was. But the truth of the matter is that even if she was a lot better of a parent, a lot better, she still would have been flamed like she was, because people would zero in on that one thing that she missed and they would just pull her apart. And I just think that's so wrong. And I, one audio file at a time, are trying to combat that. I mean, even when people write me in the comments, they'll put how horrible she is. I don't fight with anybody. I'm just like, well, you're entitled to think that way. And I try to slowly coax people to understand that there's another way to look at this. But anyway, so that's what this is, a mega listen. It's about, maybe it'll come to about an hour and a half or so, and you're welcome to listen to it. I don't know if you have a long car ride or if you can't fall asleep, this should help. But yeah, and if you do find anything in the videos that you, they're audios, but if you find anything that you wanted to comment on, I would love for you to put a comment about it, because I identify so much with the comments, because I'm really not seeing anybody on Jennifer's side. So every now and again, I'll get a comment and people will feel that she was railroaded like I do. And I get so excited. I'm like, oh, yay, one more for Jennifer. But yeah. So that's it. And I hope you enjoy. Thanks. Bye, y'all. Oh, my goodness, y'all. I had such an interesting time watching Shannon Smith today. I mean, y'all can say whatever you want about her, but I know if I were accused of the things that Jennifer Crumbley was, I sure would want someone with that kind of passion and zest fighting for me. I mean, the more I watch that trial, I am just blown away by a lot of things. Like, for instance, I'm learning things about Jennifer Crumbley that I'm like, ooh, that's not good. Ooh, that's not good. But I love the way that Shannon just lets it roll off her back. She's like, yeah, she did that. Yeah, we copped that. No, I want to open the door. No, I don't care. She is just so confident, but not in a arrogant way, but in a like a cuckoo way. But I think she's going to win this case. I really do. And I'm really hoping she does, even though the more I'm learning about Jennifer Crumbley, I'm not going to say that I think she should be found guilty, because I'll never, ever agree that I think that she deserves to be in jail. I do believe that the more I'm learning, the more I could see where she should have done so many things differently. But I just can't see the penalty being incarceration. I mean, I would like to see her fined, which she already has burned through all her life savings and everything else. So that's a hardship. But I would like to see her maybe be having to give public speaking about what her son did and what a neglectful parent she was, and almost shaming herself, going around on public speaking on her own dime and not being able to make any profit off of it, and really try to open up people's eyes. Because one thing I can tell you that I've decided about this trial, win or lose, the fact that they even have charged her is going to make a lot of parents sit up and take notice and put themselves in her shoes in a good way, in terms of, wow, she didn't know what was going on with her son, and we really can't say what's going on with ours. Now, I'm not 100% sure that you can ever stay on top of your child the way that the state is trying to claim that she should have, because kids are so sneaky, and unless you're able to quit your job and follow them around 24 hours a day, they can get into some deep crap. And I've seen it myself firsthand, which I'm not going to talk about my personal experience, but I can identify with having a teenager, and it is so rough. Now, the things that she's, done, having the affair and a lot of the comments she made, yeah, it looks bad for her. But I don't know that it looks bad enough that if we were to judge other parents, I mean, there are so many parents running around trying to make ends meet and maybe having affairs along the way and maybe not being as involved with their children as they should be. I mean, I just, I always think about that passage that, there but for the grace of God go I. It's so easy to look in hindsight and say, oh, this is where you dropped the ball and that's where you dropped the ball. But I think that it's never going to solve anything if we stick a parent in a jail cell. What is that going to do? But this trial, hopefully, is going to be such an eye-opener. And I'm really, really crossing my fingers that parents are now going to be like, wow, whatever my kid does, it could come back on me in such a bad way. I mean, I don't know how they haven't realized that yet. But I think being that this is the first case where the parent has actually had guns drawn on them and arrested and have been incarcerated. And I don't know about you, but when I look at Jennifer Crumbley, however you say her name, the way that she looked during the interview, which by the way, that I think everybody was really harsh trying to say that she didn't care about nothing and she was just scrolling through her phone because she was looking for the picture. I mean, if she could scroll through her phone and read that quick, she would be like a speed reader like no one I've ever seen. She was just hoping to come across that picture so she could show it to the detective. I don't think she was on her phone per se. But anyway, when I look at her, the Jennifer then and the Jennifer now, it breaks my heart, because I know that when she was giving those messages, when she first found out what her child had done, I mean, she didn't even grasp the situation and the graveness of it at that point. I think she was really in shock, as many of us would have been. But when she first was texting and she was saying things like, my life is over, my son, I feel like he died. And I mean, she hadn't even been arrested at that point. She was just looking at, what was right in front of her. But if she had been able to see that she was going to go on the run and she was going to be arrested with guns drawn and be in jail all this time and have public opinion hate her guts and the uphill battle that she's facing trying to be acquitted, I mean, I think she would have just dropped down into a ball and grabbed an officer's gun and shot herself in the head, because I know that's what I would have done. But hopefully this lawyer, Shannon Smith, I mean, you can say so many bad things about her because I know that's how people kind of look at first impressions, and they hear her voice and her little antics, but I don't think that it's a show. I really believe that she is doing her damnedest to stay within the law, but defend her client to the fullest. And I applaud her, and I really am entertained by her as well, which is always nice, even though I shouldn't be entertained by such things. But I just wanted to say that I think that she's doing a really good job, even if she's a little, out there, or her methods are not like any I've really seen. I mean, I have seen a few kooky lawyers in my time, but they were so out there, and their objections were like beyond the pale. But this judge, as much as who can ever hear what she says and reply, half the time I cannot and I have to replay it. But I really, I like that the judge gives her a lot of the rulings, because I do think it's very fair, and I do think that the prosecution is just not even seeing the forest for the trees. They just want to calm the community. They wanted to find somebody culpable. And, I don't know that the parents are really the ones to blame. I mean, it's everything else. It's all that's going on in the world. And it's that school. I mean, they had the child sitting right there. And everybody's saying, well, if the school had known that he had access to a gun, well, hello, what child doesn't have access to a gun in a gun-toting town like that, where people shoot for entertainment before school? I mean, wouldn't it have been smart to assume that he did have access and either ask the right questions or just assume he did and take measures accordingly? I mean, how they could turn around and say, well, if we had known he had access to a gun, then the next thing would have been, well, if we had known he had access to ammunition. And I mean, it never ends. The fact of the matter is, the school did try. There's no doubt about that. They put that child on their radar, and they called the parent, and they did a lot of things, but they could have done more. Jennifer and her husband, I don't even know his name, he could have done more. Heck, so many people can do more. But if you drop the ball, should you just have the whole world come after you and just say, you dropped the ball and you now have to hang for that? I mean, it's crazy. I hope. I mean, I really don't make too many mistakes, but that's mainly because I don't do anything but sit around watching YouTube. So really, how much trouble can I get into? But if I was out there in the world every day, like driving and then accidentally, I drive at dusk sometimes. And when I do, I'm so careful because I think, what if one time I was driving and this homeless person on my block, which we don't really have a homeless issue here, but he just came out of nowhere. Luckily, I was going very slow, so of course I didn't hit him. But it changed my life because from there on, I don't even drive at dusk now. I'll leave 10, 15 minutes later and I just tell my job, hey, I'll be there when the light, when it's light out. Because I don't want to take a chance that I'm going to be just going through my day, la-di-da-di-da, and do something like hit a child or hit through no fault of my own. I wouldn't be on the phone texting. I wouldn't have been drinking. It doesn't matter because today you do anything wrong and people just come down on you and try to hold you so accountable because in the eyes of the law, there is no such thing as an accident anymore. There is no such thing as a first offense or any of the things that used to get you a free pass. I mean, those days are so far gone. I don't even remember a time when I used to hear about crimes and they were deciding if they were going to prosecute or arrest the culprit. Do people still say culprit anymore? My age is showing. But anyway, forget about it. I mean, now there's never a question if somebody's going to be arrested. Everybody gets arrested. Everybody goes to trial. And mostly everybody gets convicted. And I just don't know where we go from here. I mean, can't we start cutting people some slack? Can't we just have different degrees of guilt? Is it just guilty or not guilty? That doesn't seem very fair to me because we're supposed to be this tolerant society, and all that I see is intolerance at every turn. And I know for myself, if you think that I haven't been tempted to sometimes pile on or sometimes be judgmental or sometimes criticize people, I have. I mean, it's normal. It's natural. You see somebody doing something and it's just the first inclination to say, oh man, and look at them in a bad way. But we have to fight our impulses to do that. And if we do, and you tend to start overlooking things or you just get your mind busy with something else, you're going to be the better person for it, not them, because you won't be carrying around all this hate and vitriol and it eats at you because trust me, I have all of that for Wendy Adelson. I've not been able to get rid of it. I've tried to stop watching things and I'm just keeping it in the back of my mind that the prosecution is working towards making her accountable, building a case, and going after her. But that's only one side of my brain. The other side of my brain is like, no way, she's never going to pay for everything. She's just gotten off scot-free. And I have to just accept that because if I sit around and I keep watching content where she is so obviously lying about her involvement or lying about her knowledge or lying about the way that Dan treated her or lying about how she's such a good mother and always put her kids first and lying about Jeff Lacoste and all the things that oh gosh, I think I could just keep going on and on. But I gotta let that go because that'll get me worked up. And so I'm applying that kind of forgiveness, not to her, but just moving on and just letting it lay instead of sitting there and just, complaining about her and spewing all this hate about her because, quite frankly, it doesn't get you anywhere. So I think it's much better to turn the other cheek for ourselves, not for anybody else. But it's just my thoughts. I ain't telling y'all what to do. Y'all do what you want. Thanks, y'all. Have a good night. Bye. And a pass. You're just never going to get one. So those days are gone. And I just think that you need to live your life accordingly. Just think there's danger around every corner and be prepared for it. And I think you'll be okay. So thanks for listening, y'all. Have a good night. Bye. Hey, y'all. I'm gonna reload up. I'm gonna re-upload a video, and I'm gonna put it at the beginning of the Jennifer Crumbley on the stand video because I'm so bummed, and I thought I'd be over it by now, but I'm not. And I just thought she did really good on the stand, and I just wanted to re-upload that one because it didn't really get too many views, so I don't think too many people are wanting to hear Jennifer's side, but I thought she did really good on the stand. I thought she was really honest, and I just realized that that was her downfall because she was very conversational. She said everything they wanted to know. There was no hesitation. She wasn't lying. She wasn't crawfishing. She wasn't trying to put a spin on anything. And it did her no good. And that's got to be one of the first times I ever saw a very believable person on the stand. And you could tell it was because she believed that that was her truth. And that's what she got on the stand to say. But that's not what people wanted. They wanted to hear her saying that she would have done a million things different. And I thought it was so honest at the end when she said, I wish he would have killed us, and stopped right there. And that, I believe, was so authentic. And that is the first thought that I would have had, because then if he maybe would have gotten that out of his system, and then he could have been arrested, and the only people that would have been, the casualties would have been the two parents, which everybody wants them dead anyway, so it kind of would have worked out. But I'm going to reload it, and I just want to say, if you get kind of confused at my videos, join the club, because I get confused too, and since I'm not monetized, I don't really worry about maybe uploading a video twice and driving my subscribers crazy, so I hope you bear with me on that, because it gets really confusing, because I just, don't really, sometimes I just want a video published, but then it doesn't publish, and then I'm like, well, I don't know if this is published, so you got to bear with me, because I'm kind of on the ditzy side. Like I said, me and Shannon Smith got a lot in common. So thanks for listening, y'all. Bye. Hey, y'all. Wow, I have a lot of thoughts on Jennifer Crumbley on the stand today. They're all positive, even though when she first started talking, I was like, she's speaking way too fast, which means she's going to not be very convincing, and she's probably going to just screw up her testimony. But I have to say, I have seen so many defendants take the stand, and they do horribly. As soon as they start talking, just like Jennifer, because as soon as she just said a couple of sentences, I was like, I don't even like her. She's too quick to talk. She's ready to talk over her attorney. She doesn't seem humble. She doesn't seem sad. She doesn't seem broken. Not that I want all those things, but when you're a defendant in a case like this, you would expect to see that kind of. And then the way she was sitting there every day, so dowdy, and like she didn't even have the energy to wash her hair or to smile. Well, who's going to smile at a case like this? But I'm just saying, like, she showed zero personality, and I wasn't expecting her to be as, the word that I am right now, articulate, or I'm not, as articulate as she was, and very fact-based. And it didn't seem to me that she was trying to put a slant and crawfish, or it just seemed to me like she was just telling the facts as she saw them, and she was giving the backstory of every text that, was very damning. And she was elaborating as if to say, well, that was when we did this, and, this was that. And it didn't even seem to me like she kept trying to play to the jury. Yes, she did direct her answers at them, but that's the way to do it. You're not going to sit there and just talk to the air. But I was very taken by that. Every defendant I've ever seen on the stand has lost me within the first couple of minutes, because they're so nervous, and that makes them look guilty. And this lady, I have to say, I originally felt that she should not have been prosecuted, but then I started to see a lot of things portrayed that she was just a horrible parent and just only concerned about herself and her horses, and she could care less about her kid, and she didn't even like him. That was the impression that the prosecution was trying to portray. And I was falling for it a little bit because to me some of those text messages were so damning. But I have to say that I thought they were good reasons, and I thought that they were honest. And I also sensed like a closeness between her and her son, which I didn't expect to even see, but just the way that he was kind of like a practical joker. So she kind of didn't take it too serious. And even, her husband, I sensed like a certain closeness there when she was able to say that they've been married like 18 years and they haven't gotten divorced yet. And I don't know about you, but usually the first thing people do when they get into custody for a prolonged period of time is get a divorce to try to distance themselves from their partner who's in jail. And I didn't sense that, they were having, I just sensed a lot of honesty, and it surprised me because I really didn't expect that. I thought I was going to see a broken woman on the stand that just kept crying and hard to cross-examine. Now, the cross-examination I've not seen yet. I don't know if it took place, so I guess maybe tomorrow I'll have a different opinion, because lately I'm just so wishy-washy, like 1 minute. But I try to maintain the same opinion, but I keep trying to find facts to back it up, if that makes sense. But in this case, like I said, I really like Shannon Smith. I just really am behind her because I don't feel that she is overdoing it, or just trying to make a fuss for no reason. And I will even say that the judge has begun to impress me, because now that I'm straining to hear her and I replay things that she says, I'm very surprised at how nice she is. I wish more judges were as nice as she was and respectful, because after, seeing trials like the OJ trial and Hankerson with the Adelson trial, and, just seeing judges that just give their rulings and say, come on, move on. And in the Zimmerman case, I forget her name, but she was really rude to all the attorneys. And when I see that, it makes me like, oh my God, how do these people ever take up law? Because if you have respect and you give respect, you should get respect. But some of these judges, man, they're horrible. But this one, she, at first struck me as a real pushover and too soft-spoken and kind of indecisive. But as the trial's progressing, I'm beginning to think that she's really in control, but just very low-key. So overall, I'm very interested in the trial, and I use the word interested rather than excited, because I was in a chat today and I was like, this trial is very exciting, don't you think? And somebody not corrected me, but they were like, yes, it's very interesting. And I was like, yeah, interesting, that's a much better word, because I'm not going to say it's exciting. I don't know, maybe I found the Adelson trial somewhat exciting in parts, like when Wendy testified and then when Catherine testified. I found that like, wow, I was like on the edge of my seat. But I'm not on the edge of my seat in this trial, but I am definitely interested, and I'm really curious to see how it's going to go. And I'm hoping for a positive outcome. And I'm also hoping that, just like I had said yesterday, whether they find this parent guilty or even if they find her innocent, I think that the attention that it's gotten has really done the world some good, because I don't think parents can now just say, oh, my boy would never do that. They realize, because even if they lose this case, that's not to say that there won't be a more neglectful parent whose child does something horrible and they'll prosecute them and they might get a conviction. And now that we know that you're just a stone's throw away from going to jail if your child misbehaves really bad or does something heinous like this, I think it's going to create a safer environment for kids and students and maybe the mall and who knows. So fingers crossed on that. And just wanted to share my take on Jennifer Crumbley's testimony and also on her lawyer. I think she's doing a great job, and I hope that she gets her off. And that's all. Bella. Sorry. That's all, y'all. Have a great afternoon. Bye. Oh my God. I am so pumped up. Now, I'm getting myself ready for Monday when the Crumbley case comes back. And if she gets found guilty, I will I don't know, I'll have to find a new hobby, because I feel that Shannon Smith's closing argument could have come from me. I mean, I could not believe that she touched on every single solitary point that I have been feeling and thinking and saying. And she did it so well, it just blew my mind. But my concern is that the prosecutor had given a really boring, lukewarm closing, and then Shannon did hers, which I thought was so terrific. But when it went back to the prosecution that gets the final say because it's their burden, she was totally different. I mean, she was loud, she was passionate, I don't know if she banged the table, but she may as well have, because she was so aggressive. I couldn't believe it was the same woman, honestly. But I'm hoping that the jurors did not warm to her and that they felt she was just too malicious. But, I mean, Shannon's argument, first of all, I was really shocked to find out that Shannon was in such a happy marriage with 4 wonderful kids. It shocked me because she just seemed like she was such a hot mess that she was probably, in my mind, she was single and all over the place and a good lawyer, but her personal life was probably crazy. But it seems like she's really, together, albeit a little crazy. And she used so many good examples. I mean, she even went so far as to say that if this verdict comes back guilty, that we're going to have to be worried if we have children on our cell phone plan and they start sending pictures, nude pictures, to their friends. Will the parents be held responsible for pornographic material? And she really brought home the point that you just really cannot hold a parent responsible. You have to, I don't know. She just really, I that's the only point that I really remember, but she said so many things. And the one thing that she said that I thought was really good was that she pointed out how out of context the prosecution took all their bits and pieces of evidence. And I know that there was one where she was saying that they grabbed a snippet where the husband said, or the wife said to the husband, you got to clear your cache, as if to say destroying evidence. But really, she had just deactivated her Facebook and he was saying it's still showing. And so she was like, well, clear your cache, and that way refresh, and maybe then it'll show that we've taken the site down, which is perfectly innocent to clear your cache so that occurs. But the way the prosecution had sent that message, like, have you cleared your cache, and started destroying evidence. I know I just said that, but I just was really struck by how manipulative the evidence was. I mean, to be honest with you, from all the trial watching that I did on this case, I knew that the prosecution didn't really have a whole lot of evidence and that they were just using the public outcry. And, it was a political move to pursue these parents. But the way that Shannon just pointed out so many things, I really think that she gave the jurors all the tools that they needed to really examine the evidence and come back with a not guilty verdict. Now, I'm going to say I was pretty shocked because I'm coming off the Adelson case, okay? Adelson. And I was really surprised. Like, I went into a chat the other day and I made my opinions known as I do, which surprised me that I did that, but I'm used to doing that now. And to be honest with you, before the Adelson case, I hadn't commented for almost 10 years in the chat because people were so mean and malicious and hateful that I was just like, F this, then nobody needs to know my opinion. But when the Adelson case, when I got into that and I started seeing how guilty everybody was, and the interesting part was that when I was in the live stream, there was no discourse. Nobody was fighting for their innocence or arguing that this is, they didn't do this and we should cut this person a break. And there was none of that. It was everybody was in total unison. These people are guilty and they need to fry. And so I got really comfortable in an environment like that, never thinking that if I popped off with what I thought, I would get like bombarded with people being, really critical of what I'm saying and attacking me back. Even though I wasn't attacking them, I was just giving an opinion. But, people, they internalize everything. So that chat was really, I didn't enjoy it at all, and I wouldn't ever go back in another live stream where we weren't all of like minds. And I know that's kind of not cool because really, if you can't have a decent debate, then you're just insulating yourself to the point where, but honestly, it's not worth it. I'd rather insulate myself and not have any drama. And just, when I have something to say, I just post it here. If you agree, you can comment. If you don't, that's all I really need to just, get my thoughts out. And that's what I'm going to go back to, because being in a chat where half the room is like they want her head on a platter. And then the other half is kind of like in agreement with what I'm thinking. But the chat is moving so fast from all the hateful comments. You can't even keep up. And it's just not pleasant. So I'm done with that chat. Even though the trial's just about over, I'm sure on Monday they'll come back, they'll get the jury instructions, and then they'll go debate or whatever. What the hell is it called that jurors do? They come on words. They fail me. But the jurors will come back with a verdict. Deliberate, there it is. But anyway, so I just wanted to say, I think we have such a fighting chance that Shannon Smith, brought it home, made it rain, whatever the expression is. And if she fails, I'll be so brokenhearted. I mean, if she fails and it comes back with a guilty verdict, I think Jennifer will wind up with like 5 to 10 years. But, it could be way worse. I mean, maybe they'll get a big win and she'll get life or something, which, I think I would cry, even though I'm not so crazy about her. But I definitely think she's not a bad, evil person, a little selfish, a little neglectful, a little naive, a little uninformed. I could just go on and on with words to describe her. Checked out parent. I think she's a little depressed, not now, but when she was parenting, her son was, just giving her some issues with always never turning in his assignments, and therefore he posed a problem for what a school he would get into in college. So I think that she kind of was looking long term. She knew that he was not going to do well. And that has to be sad for any parent. So I think that depressed her. And she didn't really know how to handle it, because what can you do? You take the kid's phone away, you say no video games. Really, what you don't have that much leverage these days. So I think she was a little depressed and didn't kind of ill-equipped to handle the situation. But maybe they should have all gone into family counseling. But I don't really know that I have high hopes for that either. If you get a really good counselor, then, yeah. But most counselors are not good counselors. and they just, they either side with the child, and then that gives the child too much power, or they just want to milk you for income, or I don't know. I mean, there are good therapists out there for sure. And some of them, I once talked to a therapist, and he told me that, he said, people that go into long-term therapy really are wasting their money, because if you get a therapist that believes in cognitive therapy and helping you to correct the mistakes that you continually make over and over, and he teaches you how to identify the reasons that you keep slipping back into your old modes, and teaches you a new way to, fight conflict and to organize your thinking. And, really, he had told me that 6 or 8 sessions really is all a person needs to get their life back on track, if they're not too effed up. And I believe that. And with family therapy, I think, same thing. If you can get a good therapist and you can get them to teach your family some good coping skills and communication skills and ways to combat problems, I think, you can get your family back on track. But anyway, aside from all that, I just want to say that I am so hopeful. I'm actually going to pray for Shannon tonight, because I was very impressed with the job that she did, and also with her as a person. And I mean, she faced a lot of ridicule. She incorporated into her closing arguments all the TikToks that make fun of her, and she was very self-effacing, and she just was like, I'm a human, I make mistakes, I get overwhelmed, if things come at me too fast, I'm all flustered. And that's the first attorney I ever really saw that was a combination of like a ditz and also very capable, all in one. And kind of I identified with it, because I myself am pretty ditzy, and I get overwhelmed too and confused. And when I'm trying to demonstrate something to someone, it never works. I mean, it fails miserably. I could do it 100 times perfect every time, but then if I want to show it to somebody, nothing works right, or I can't remember, or I just get confused. But yet I'm a pretty sharp person. I'm pretty, smart. I'm pretty alert, and I have good instincts, and, I'm not going to go on and on about it, but I will say that I also have a really, aside to my personality, that you're like, God, what is wrong with her? So I definitely identify with Shannon, but I really am crossing my fingers for her, and I hope that y'all are too. Like I said, I know there's so many people that just want to see that woman fry, and I think it's really sad. And another point I wanted to make, which doesn't really make sense, because if they were so convinced that her son, had mental illness and was seeing demons and all the things that they tried to say, that the signs that she ignored, well, if that's the case, then how come he just went straight to prison and was tried as an adult? I mean, he wasn't put in a mental hospital. So the state is obviously as neglectful prosecuting a mentally ill person. So I didn't really understand that. And I'm hoping to find some more information on how the state can claim that the parent ignored the mental illness, but they were able to prosecute him as a healthy man. I mean, I don't get it. But anyway, that's really all I have to say. Again, cross your fingers, because I sure am. And we'll see what happens on Monday. Thanks, y'all. Bye. Have a good weekend. Oh, my God. I am so pumped up. Now, I'm getting myself ready for Monday when the Crumbley case comes back. And if she gets found guilty, I will I don't know, I'll have to find a new hobby, because I feel that Shannon Smith's closing argument could have come from me. I mean, I could not believe that she touched on every single solitary point that I have been feeling and thinking and saying. And she did it so well, it just blew my mind. But my concern is that the prosecutor had given a really boring, lukewarm closing, and then Shannon did hers, which I thought was so terrific. But when it went back to the prosecution that gets the final say because it's their burden, she was totally different. I mean, she was loud, she was passionate, I don't know if she banged the table, but she may as well have because she was so aggressive. I couldn't believe it was the same woman, honestly. But I'm hoping that the jurors did not warm to her and that they felt she was just too malicious. But I mean, Shannon's argument, first of all, I was really shocked to find out that Shannon was in such a happy marriage with 4 wonderful kids. It shocked me because she just seemed like she was such a hot mess that she was probably, in my mind, she was single and all over the place and a good lawyer, but her personal life was probably crazy. But it seems like she's really, together, albeit a little crazy. And she used so many good examples. I mean, she even went so far as to say that if this verdict comes back guilty, that we're going to have to be worried if we have children on our cell phone plan and they start sending pictures, nude pictures, to their friends. Will the parents be held responsible for pornographic material? And she really brought home the point that you just really cannot hold a parent responsible. You have to, I don't know. She just really, I that's the only point that I really remember, but she said so many things. And the one thing that she said that I thought was really good was that she pointed out how out of context the prosecution took all their bits and pieces of evidence. And I know that there was one where she was saying that they grabbed a snippet where the husband said, or the wife said to the husband, you got to clear your cache, as if to say destroying evidence. But really, she had just deactivated her Facebook and he was saying it's still showing. And so she was like, well, clear your cache and that way refresh and maybe then it'll show that we've taken the site down, which is perfectly innocent to clear your cache so that occurs. But the way the prosecution had sent that message, like, have you cleared your cache, and started destroying evidence. I know I just said that, but I just was really struck by how manipulative the evidence was. I mean, to be honest with you, from all the trial watching that I did on this case, I knew that the prosecution didn't really have a whole lot of evidence and that they were just using the public outcry. And, it was a political move to pursue these parents. But the way that Shannon just pointed out so many things, I really think that she gave the jurors all the tools that they needed to really examine the evidence and come back with a not guilty verdict. Now, I'm going to say I was pretty shocked because I'm coming off the Adelson case, okay? Adelson. And I was really surprised. Like, I went into a chat the other day and I made my opinions known as I do, which surprised me that I did that, but I'm used to doing that now. And to be honest with you, before the Adelson case, I hadn't commented for almost 10 years in the chat because people were so mean and malicious and hateful that I was just like, F this, then nobody needs to know my opinion. But when the Adelson case, when I got into that and I started seeing how guilty everybody was, and the interesting part was that when I was in the live stream, there was no discourse. Nobody was fighting for their innocence or arguing that this is, they didn't do this and we should cut this person a break. And there was none of that. Everybody was in total unison. These people are guilty and they need to fry. And so I got really comfortable in an environment like that, never thinking that if I popped off with what I thought, I would get bombarded with people being, really critical of what I'm saying and attacking me back. Even though I wasn't attacking them, I was just giving an opinion. But, people, they internalize everything. So that chat was really I didn't enjoy it at all, and I wouldn't ever go back in another live stream where we weren't all of like minds. And I know that's kind of not cool because really, if you can't have a decent debate, then you're just insulating yourself to the point where, but honestly, it's not worth it. I'd rather insulate myself and not have any drama. And just, when I have something to say, I just post it here. If you agree, you can comment. If you don't, that's all I really need to just, get my thoughts out. And that's what I'm going to go back to, because being in a chat where half the room is like they want her head on a platter. And then the other half is kind of like in agreement with what I'm thinking, but the chat is moving so fast from all the hateful comments, you can't even keep up. And it's just not pleasant. So I'm done with that chat. Even though the trial's just about over, I'm sure on Monday they'll come back, they'll get the jury instructions, and then they'll go debate or whatever. What the hell is it called that jurors do? They come on words. They fail me. But the jurors will come back with a verdict. Deliberate, there it is. But anyway, so I just wanted to say, I think we have such a fighting chance that Shannon Smith, brought it home, made it rain, whatever the expression is. And if she fails, I'll be so brokenhearted. I mean, if she fails and it comes back with a guilty verdict, I think Jennifer will wind up with like 5 to 10 years. But, it could be way worse. I mean, maybe they'll get a big win and she'll get life or something, which, I mean, I think I would cry, even though I'm not so crazy about her. But I definitely think she's not a bad, evil person, a little selfish, a little neglectful, a little naive, a little uninformed. I could just go on and on with words to describe her. Checked out parent. I think she's a little depressed, not now, but when she was parenting, I mean, her son was, just giving her some issues with always never turning in his assignments, and therefore he posed a problem for what a school he would get into in college. So I think that she kind of was looking long term. She knew that he was not going to do well. And that has to be sad for any parent. So I think that depressed her. And she didn't really know how to handle it, because what can you do? You take the kid's phone away, you say no video games. I mean, really, what you don't have that much leverage these days. So I think she was a little depressed and didn't kind of ill-equipped to handle the situation. But maybe they should have all gone into family counseling. But I don't really know that I have high hopes for that either. I mean, if you get a really good counselor, then, yeah. But most counselors are not good counselors. And they just, they either side with the child, and then that gives the child too much power, or they just want to milk you for income, or I don't know. I mean, there are good therapists out there for sure. And some of them, I once talked to a therapist, and he told me that, he said, people that go into long-term therapy really are wasting their money, because if you get a therapist that believes in cognitive therapy and helping you to correct the mistakes that you continually make over and over, and he teaches you how to identify the reasons that you keep slipping back into your old modes, and teaches you a new way to, fight conflict and to organize your thinking. And, really, he had told me that 6 or 8 sessions really is all a person needs to get their life back on track, if they're not too effed up. And I believe that. And with family therapy, I think, same thing. If you can get a good therapist and you can get them to teach your family some good coping skills and communication skills and ways to combat problems, I think, you can get your family back on track. But anyway, aside from all that, I just want to say that I am so hopeful. I'm actually going to pray for Shannon tonight, because I was very impressed with the job that she did, and also with her as a person. And I mean, she faced a lot of ridicule. She incorporated into her closing arguments all the TikToks that make fun of her, and she was very self-effacing, and she just was like, I'm a human, I make mistakes, I get overwhelmed if things come at me too fast, I'm all flustered. And that's the first attorney I ever really saw that was a combination of like a ditz and also very capable, all in one. And kind of I identified with it because I myself am pretty ditzy, and I get overwhelmed too and confused. And when I'm trying to demonstrate something to someone, it never works. I mean, it fails miserably. I could do it 100 times perfect every time, but then if I want to show it to somebody, nothing works right, or I can't remember, or I just get confused. So, but yet I'm a pretty sharp person. I'm pretty, smart. I'm pretty alert, and I have good instincts, and I'm not going to go on and on about it, but I will say that I also have a really, aside to my personality, that you're like, God, what is wrong with her? So I definitely identify with Shannon, but I really am crossing my fingers for her, and I hope that y'all are too. Like I said, I know there's so many people that just want to see that woman fry, and I think it's really sad. And another point I wanted to make, which doesn't really make sense, because if they were so convinced that her son, had mental illness and was seeing demons and all the things that they tried to say, that the signs that she ignored, well, if that's the case, then how come he just went straight to prison and was tried as an adult? I mean, he wasn't put in a mental hospital. So the state is obviously as neglectful prosecuting a mentally ill person. So I didn't really understand that. And I'm hoping to find some more information on how the state can claim that the parent ignored the mental illness, but they were able to prosecute him as a healthy man. I mean, I don't get it. But anyway, that's really all I have to say. Again, cross your fingers, because I sure am. And we'll see what happens on Monday. Thanks, y'all. Bye. Have a good weekend. Hey, y'all. So I'm going to have to change my grade for Shannon, I think, from an A++ to maybe just an A. Or an A-, because I was listening to the lawyer, Peter Tragos, and he kind of made me feel like maybe she did go a little bit too far in some of the points that she made, and she personalized her argument a little bit too much. But I also think that some of the points that he made didn't hold water. So at the end of my video, I interjected a little bit new commentary where I think maybe he's wrong, but we'll just have to see. But anyway, here it is. Thanks. Hey, y'all. So again, Peter Tragos, he is a really good attorney from everything I can tell. He stays kind of neutral. He doesn't really criticize performances of lawyers, and I really like that. As far as Jennifer goes, he did say a couple of things that she did that came very close to the line and maybe even went over it. For instance, he said when she interjected her son's possible sending pornography, that was cringy and she should never have done that. But to quote Daniel Rashbaum, the reality is, that's what kids do. I mean, yeah, is it pleasant to think of your child sending pornography to his girlfriend at 15 years old? No. But if you're going to be a good parent, you're going to have to face all the different things that a child does once he reaches puberty with the opposite sex. Like it or hate it. So I thought it was a good point that she did that, regardless of if it was quote unquote cringy. And then when he was saying that she was interjecting herself just way too much. I mean, if that's true and she's not really allowed to do that or supposed to do it, and a lot of things that she said bordered on jury nullification, then isn't it the responsibility of the prosecution to object and maybe shut down that way of, that line of thinking? But they just let her go. I don't think they objected once. And to me, if she was doing things that were not acceptable, they should have tried to get her to stop. And they didn't. It was crickets. And so that only proves to me that they are inept, because if they knew the law like Peter Tragos does, she wouldn't even have been allowed to go on these long tangents that really brought her point home. And also, he was saying, I'm trying to remember now. Oh, goodness. He made like 1,000 good points, and of course, I can barely think of any of them. But I will just give it a synopsis that after hearing everything he said, what I have realized is this case has everyone so divided. How in the world could the prosecution have hoped to get a guilty verdict? Which only tells me that they went, after her, spending all this money. And I think at the end of the day, the questions that you have to ask is, did she do things wrong, Jennifer? Heck yeah. Could she have been 1,000 times better? Heck yeah. And is there a way to make sure that people parent the way that they need to so that things like this does not happen? Well, I don't know about that. Not with how sneaky kids are today. I mean, goodness, they just can keep everything from you. And unless you're prepared to stop working, follow your child everywhere they go, I do not believe that this could be avoided all the time. Now, the next other side of that argument is no guns. But again, I just think, that's too strong a point to even touch, so I won't. But I do think there were some failings on the part of the school. I mean, they keep saying, but for, if she would have told them he had a gun, then they would have acted differently. But again, it just blows my mind that this is such a gun culture state. How the school could get up there and even try to say, well, we didn't know that he had access to a gun, when chances are every single kid has access to a gun in that state and that school if they're shooting practice before. I mean, they even have a period for it, from what I understand, that they can go and shoot before class on Wednesdays or something. So if you're encouraging the use of guns on one side of your mouth, and then having lawsuits like this when they use them for what they're not intended for on the other side, how is a jury supposed to come back with a guilty verdict? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I blame the prosecution for a malicious prosecution when they don't really have the law on their side clear cut. It's an interpretation of the law. It's kind of ambiguous. And then Peter was saying that, he felt that some things that Jennifer was saying were downright leaning towards jury nullification, which I had to look that up, even though I kind of figured out what it meant. But it was basically just saying that, it's taking a set of facts that are accepted in social media and just ruling out. Well, I'm going to read it to you because I just probably messed it up so bad. So it says, jury nullification refers to a jury's knowing and deliberate reaction of the evidence or rejection of the evidence. Boy, this is no better than my kooky explanation, but start again. Jury nullification refers to a jury's knowing and deliberate rejection of the evidence or refusal to apply the law, either because the jury wants to send a message about some social issue that is larger than the case itself, or because the result dictated by law is contrary to the juror's sense of justice. So basically, I didn't see where she was bordering on that, because I think she was just giving scenarios, to quote Katie Magbanawah, and trying to get the jury to look at it from a different perspective. It didn't seem to me that she was hammering home that point that, everything we do now is going to be up for debate. I think she was interjecting it as a reality that could occur from guilty verdicts like this, but I don't think she was putting the weight of the whole, social climate on the shoulders of the jury and saying they need to do this or that will happen. So I thought that was a little extreme. But really, I'm just so worried after, hearing this, because I mean, to me, if it is a hung jury, and that's better than a guilty verdict, of course, but then Jennifer has to go through this all over again, as do we. And I know that the state is, as overzealous as they are, they're probably going to try her again. But I don't see where there's anything they really could have learned. Hopefully she'll have a different lawyer, I guess. And then that would probably get them their verdict. Because with this lawyer, I just don't think there's any way they're going to prevail. She might be unlikable to some people, but some people will identify with her because she is definitely the modern mother, and she's doing everything she can. And she's just very fortunate that her kids she checks in with them, she cares about them. They sound like a very close family. But the sad truth is that is not enough, because kids' psyche change on a dime. I mean, you can be just going along, everything's going well, they talk to you, they love you, they're close with you, and then they might have something in their school life or on Facebook or whatever just infiltrate their little brain, and it throws them in a completely different direction, or they get a friend that influences them to start doing things in a whole nother direction. And you're not going to instantly react like the second they do something that's not in their character. You're not going to just shut it down. I mean, you can't do that. So you have to use the wait and see attitude. And then if things become a problem, then you try to step in and say, okay, you can't hang with that friend anymore, or you can't use your cell phone, and all the things that are almost impossible to execute, because let's face it, kids today, you can't put anything you give them, you can't take it away, because once you do, they have such a sense of entitlement, and then they turn into 10 times worse a child to rear, and they start sneaking around, and they start, God, I know it's terrible. I have a very poor view of teenagers, because in my mind, they're all like little criminals. They say that the reason why prison guards are so unsafe is because prison guards have lives. And they're out there and they're taking care of their children, and they're working, and they're, running a household, and they're doing all these things to occupy their mind. But a prisoner has nothing like that to occupy his mind. So he gets to sit in his cell 23 hours a day plotting. And that's almost like what it's like with a teenager, because they don't have a job. They don't have things that keep them grounded and moving forward without a lot of time to think up ways to do things wrong. And they say, idle mind is the devil's workshop. So I believe that's true. And so regardless of how involved you are with your children, that is not the problem, because at any point something could happen. And with Jennifer, I just think that every single thing that she did, she could have been so much worse at. And every single thing that she did, she could have done so much better. So when those are the set of facts, what do? You hang. And that's where I think it's going to go. I at first thought she was going to get her acquittal, Shannon, but there's no way. There's just too many facts to weigh, too many what ifs, too many everything. So in a case like this, I think if you want to bring a person, a parent, to be responsible. It's just like that, Peter Trago started to touch on it, and Shannon did not touch on it at all, but I would have loved to see her bring it up, because how many of these parents hand their 16-year-old a set of keys? And with the boys, they tend to speed and kill somebody, or even drunk driving. And where does it end? I'm surprised that there aren't laws on the books already that if the parent gives the child this, but I haven't seen any cases like that. But to me, that's the first place I'd go, because I would never think of giving a child 16 years old the keys to a car. That's a weapon. So I just don't even know where everything is going. They have to get some hard and fast laws on the books. And until then, they have to just hope for the best and hold the person that did the crime accountable. And their biggest question should be, should the person be tried as an adult? Should the person be tried as does the person have any mental illness or any real qualifying reason for why they should not get the most severe sentence available. And it has to stop there until we have laws on the books that have been approved by the people to go drill down and find the root cause and prosecute parents of children, which to me, once that starts happening, nobody is safe. Because if you ever watch a prosecution spin a set of facts, wow. And if there's law on their side, where in this case, I don't think there is, it's going to be a very sad day for parents. And I've always honestly felt that being a parent is 95% aggravation with 5% gratification. That's how I felt years and years ago. But I have to say, I think those percentages have increased to 99% aggravation with 1% gratification. And that gratification only comes when they were little babies and little toddlers, and they were so cute, and they were learning to walk and run and everything about everything. But now when they get to be teenagers, I mean, they're so sullen and they're so disrespectful and they're so entitled. And again, I'm sorry to generalize, because y'all might have some really great children, and I know they're out there because I've had some friends that their children speak so respectful to their mother. Even at 16, 17, they love to hug their mom and kiss their mom. Not the boys so much, but the girls. And I know there are good teens out there that are, maybe 99% gratification and 1% aggravation, but that's not the majority. I mean, with everything coming at children today and all the temptation to do the wrong thing when the right thing is right there, it's so much greater. So the country in general, where teenagers are concerned, are in a real state of affairs, a sad state of affairs. But I just don't think that the way that they're looking to rectify the issue before us is by prosecuting a parent that could have done more, didn't do enough, doesn't deserve incarceration. I said this once before. I think somebody made the good point, because I was like, well, what about if she were to just start doing public speaking? Like, hello, my name is Jennifer, and me and my husband were just, going through our busy lives, and my son got a gun that we gave him, which was legal, and killed 4 kids in a school shooting, and went from there. And I think that, you bring your point home, you bring all the things you learned, and I thought it would be a good way. And she would have to do it on her dime, where she would not get any profit if she wrote a book or anything. But the person pointed out that where is she going to be able to go, that she would be safe if she stood, before a bunch of people. Yeah, and the next thing you know, you'd hear shots ring out. So I guess she couldn't do that. But maybe she could do it by Zoom. I mean, that's a big thing these days. So maybe she could give public speaking over a big screen. And, that would be something. Whereas I think just in general, even if Jennifer doesn't get acquitted and doesn't go on the public speaking circuit, I think that so many parents are sitting up and taking notice, because before this trial, I think you had so many parents that would judge and be like, oh, my kid would never do that. And I think now they're like, okay, we have to assume that he would and hope that he would never. So that's going to save so many lives and probably reduce school shootings, hopefully. But I just don't think incarceration is the answer. And I'm really hoping that the jury doesn't think so either. So that's it. And thanks for listening, y'all. Bye. Let's see Monday. Fingers crossed. Y'all, I am so crushed by today's verdict. I feel so bad for Jennifer. I feel so bad for Shannon. This was such a big case. And I think that Shannon really tried hard. And I hate the fact that her not so average methods are probably going to be up for everybody pulling her apart on why Jennifer lost. And I really don't think it had much to do with her unconventional ways of trying the case, as I think it's such a hot button issue. And I think it's sad, because I think that, all that I noticed whenever I saw Shannon, excuse me, have her little mini meltdowns or whatever, was just a really honest, authentic defense lawyer. going up against a really big bad prosecution in this case because the country is so fed up of all of these senseless deaths. I mean, what is it now, like 300 school shootings since Columbine? And I just really feel that, yes, Jennifer really did not do things right. That's for sure. I've never once said, oh, she was a great mom. Never would I say that. But I think that had they given her a non-guilty verdict, I think that the country still would have fared so much better because I think that it would have been like close call. And parents would have started saying, whoo, we better, start getting more involved in our kids' life because the next case, they might be able to get a conviction. So I think it would have been just as effective had they found her not guilty in terms of the message that it sent. But I was listening to some of the commentators and they really didn't touch so much on the fact that she was a bad parent or a neglectful parent, but just did she have a duty to protect? And she failed at that. But the thing I'm confused about, but I will probably get some answers when I watch more, is if that wasn't a law on the books already, that her child is not supposed to be able to have access to the gun without a gun lock and all that, if that law wasn't on the books, I really don't understand. But I hate to waffle about things I don't know, so I'll just suffice to say that, yes, I am crushed to my core. The last time I felt this bad was for Justin Ross Harris, because I felt that by them bringing in so many of his sex addiction issues, the jury just, sent him to fry. But luckily, his conviction has been overturned, and he is not any longer convicted of the murder of his son, which I was waiting for years for him to get to the appellate court and all that. And he did get it thrown out, and the prosecutor said they're not going to retry him. So he's now just serving time for sexting with an underage girl, which is, I think he has like another 6 or 7 years, which is still a lot, but compared to what he was facing, I'll take it. So I was really depressed when he got convicted, even though I did not find him to be a sympathetic figure. But whenever I see piling on or, just everybody just so outraged that they just find any reason to hate somebody or to slander or to just get, so indignant and criticize and judge people that they have no idea what's going on in their lives. And so I'm an advocate for that, I guess. But anyway, I feel really bad for Shannon because, like I said, I think that people are going to use this as an excuse to say she's not a good lawyer, which I totally don't think is true. And I know it's going to be really hard for her to, get over this because you could tell just how passionate she was and how much she cared. And with all those cards that she had, they were so worn out during her closing that you could tell and she must have practiced with those cards because they couldn't have been cards from another trial. They were specifically for this trial, but they were so worn and bent. And I think she really, really gave this trial her all. And she failed. And I think that's really sad. So I feel bummed about that. And I certainly feel bummed for Jennifer. But what struck me so weird about this trial, which I don't know, I don't know, but I know I stayed tuned for 6 months watching the theater shooter trial, and there were so many victims, and they were all paraded into court, and they all were, their stories were told, and so compassionately, and the parents, the victim impacts. Now, maybe there'll be some at sentencing, but the way this trial unfolded, I had such a hard time summoning up my sympathy because they weren't even really touched on, just named at the end of the trial and a couple of times throughout, but it just felt like such a political move to me because the prosecutor seemed so malicious and it didn't seem like they never mentioned the victims' families. They rarely mentioned the victims themselves. And when you watch the movie theater shooting trial, that was all that was talked about. It was like the parents, the friends, how in love they were. And you really felt like the victims were in the courtroom. And you couldn't help but think, how could anybody just go and shoot people in the theater like that? But in this trial, I don't know. I just felt the victims were absent. But that's just me. You can, put something in the comments if you agree. But suffice to say that, like I said, I'm pretty bummed, and I was going to rewatch the trial if she had gotten a not guilty verdict. But now that she didn't, I'm just going to feel sad, and I don't want to watch it and wallow in the sadness. And it's so, it's so weird because all day I was in the chat and I kept saying, like, her life is over either way. I mean, look, she's got nothing left. She has no home to go to. She has no family to go to. She has no money. She has no job. And, I was just feeling like even if she wins, she loses. And then somebody in the chat had said, well, if she gets a not guilty verdict, she could write a book about, everything, maybe a help book to parents. And that's true, and she could donate the proceeds, and that would have been a feel good for her, I'm sure. And then somebody had said that she, maybe could even sue for wrongful persecution, but she can't do that now. And the last thing they said that made me say, yeah, she could get her life together if she's found not guilty. They were saying that her love of horses and how much she understands and everything, maybe she could go work in a horse farm or run one. And I know that would be a beautiful life, and give you time to really regroup and ponder your life and maybe, make amends for it, give to the community. I don't know. But I was hopeful that if they gave her a not guilty verdict, that she would definitely turn it around and be humble. But that was not to be. And the last thing I'll say is one of the things that so many people harped on when she said, if I had to do it over again, well, two things. She had said, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't do anything different. And it troubles me that they zeroed in on that and really found fault with her saying that because she was on the stand to tell the truth. And I believe that she said that, meaning she didn't really see where she could have done something different. And she was trying to be honest and say that she really searched her heart and her mind and said, what should I have done? What could I do? I mean, yeah, Monday morning quarterbacking is always a way, but she, I thought, was trying to be really candid. And I think it backfired on her. I think she should have lied and said, oh, if I had to do it over again, I would never have let my child have a gun. I would have called the psychiatrist in 10 minutes. I would have taken him home and stayed all day with him. I mean, she could have said all these things, but I don't think they would have been the truth. And I just feel bad that she was faulted for just kind of being honest. Another thing she did that people didn't cotton to was when she said that she felt she was a hypervigilant mom or a helicopter mom. And I guess they really should have given her the definition of that so that she could have answered it as truthfully as people would have had. Because I think that she meant that she was always like, where's Ethan? And she's always calling and checking, and she's got the school app, and she's all on top of that every day. And she's always asking her husband, where is he? And, checking in with a friend. And I think she thought she was a hypervigilant mom, but I think it needed to be explained that a hypervigilant helicopter mom, whatever, wouldn't really take their eyes off their kid for a second, because if you do, that's when you miss stuff. And so she really wasn't that much of a helicopter mom or that much of a hypervigilant mom, but I think she was checked in at times. And to her, she was overreacting sometimes or making too big a fuss over things and trying not to on other things. And I think it all backfired on her. And I'm really sad to hear it, but nothing I can do. So just going to accept it and move on. I'm not going to blame the jury. I'm not going to complain or say anybody got it wrong, because it is what it is. And I think the only chance that we really have is for sentencing. And I want to be optimistic. But then on the other hand, I'm thinking, even though the judge seemed really nice and she seemed really understanding of Shannon's shortcomings and indulging at times, but I don't want to be fooled a second time, because sometimes the judges that seem the sweetest and the nicest, man, they throw the book at the defendant. And honestly, in this case, since it's such a landmark case and there's so many people watching, I think the judge is going to probably give her consecutive sentences for each count. And so even if she were to give her only 5 years for each one, what is that? 5 times 4 is 20 years. So I don't really see Jennifer getting out of this. However, I am hopeful that maybe there's some appellate issues, because I don't know about you, but when I was watching that trial, like the second day or the first day, and Shannon was like, can we go to sidebar? And the judge said, yeah. And Shannon's like, you want to go out in the hall? But somehow they never made it there, and they just started arguing and bringing all this information out in front of the jury. And I never saw that before. So I think maybe there's something there. And maybe Jennifer will apply for ineffective assistance of counsel, because surely, even though I don't think that Shannon performed poorly or, was ineffective, I think that there's certainly something to be said for what people are used to. She definitely didn't have conventional methods, and she was very emotional at times and crying after the video and then saying, well, that had nothing to do with my case. That was kind of a misstep. So they might be able to get her another trial, and that would, I think the second one would go better, but it might not. What do I know? And then we got the husband's trial, and everybody says he has to be really worried now, because had she gotten off, he might have gotten off, but now he's probably going to go up the river too. So it's just a sad case all the way around. I don't know. I feel kind of bad, and I'm just going to try to put it out of my mind. I'm not going to make any more videos about it. It is what it is, and I'll just accept it. And I hope y'all can too. Let me know in the comments if there's any kind of advice I can give to y'all, but don't think there would be, because I'm not an advice line. Just kidding. I sometimes give good advice. Thanks, y'all. Bye. Hey, y'all. So if you made it this far, that means you listened to all of the different audio files, and I can't thank you enough. But I think that's pretty much going to be all that I have really left to say about Jennifer. I won't be providing any new content. However, I will on April 19th. I'm sure I'll be filled with many, many sad thoughts. That's the day of her sentencing, and I just have such a feeling that this judge is going to not go easy on her. And even if she does go easy on her and she gives her 5 years, which is, I think, the minimum for each count, and then if she serves them concurrently, I still think that's 20 years. And she could wind up with 10 years. I mean, there's just, it's such a sad story all the way around. But anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for all your support. And if anybody has anything they want to put in the comments about Jennifer and how unjust this is, I would love to read it, because there's just not enough people out there rooting for her. I guess she's just a very unsympathetic figure, or the topic is so inflammatory that people would rather just keep their opinion to themselves. But y'all can come here to my channel because it's a safe space. All right. Thanks, y'all. Bye.